lean and green, if you bring these two areas together, I think are two of the most important things that you need to do in an organization in this modern world. So lean, I think, is well known to many organizations in Denmark about making improvement in efficiency, reducing variation, and probably more important and to engage people is actually to help make life easier for people. So that's, I suppose, what lean is about, which is well known to many organizations. And the green, or the environmental side of things, is really about removing, I suppose, different types of waste like environmental pollution or landfill or water usage or electricity and so forth. So the important thing really for me is to bring these two areas together, because yes, it's about creating more economic wealth, the lean side of things, but it's also doing it in the right way, which is the environmental side of things. And I suppose the approach that we take in our way of thinking about lean is a very social approach. It's very much about people, it's very much about making life easier and better for people. So I suppose if you bring that together, it's about creating a really true sustainable organisation, a sustainable business, a sustainable country. Well, I think traditional lean management was really, probably for many organisations, it was much too much focused on the simple 7 wastes. So it was simply, how do you make things more efficient? However, I think one of the things that was missing in a lot of traditional lean was not necessarily about making organisations more effective. So effective in terms of improving their productivity, improving their profitability, improving their growth and so forth. So I think that's one element of lean that I think is important. But I think the other side of things is actually helping from the wider societal and community point of view. So we don't want organisations and businesses to become more and more efficient to produce goods that we don't need, or consumer durables that wear out very quickly, or actually use excessive amounts of raw materials and pollute the environment. So I think what we need to do is to make organisations more effective, but actually to do it in the right way that benefits the whole community. I suppose the advantage of bringing us together is certainly what we found is some organisations start from a lean perspective and have realised they needed to move more in the green or the environmental type of approach. We find other organisations who start with a sort of strong environmental approach and have realised they needed to adopt the lean approach as well. So I suppose if you start with some good lean activity, quite often there are big blind spots in what you're doing. So for instance, working in a manufacturing environment recently, we found that although they'd done classic lean activity, removing all of the waste, as you might say, they hadn't looked at the energy usage of the machines. They hadn't looked at the water usage. They hadn't looked at the atmospheric pollution that they're causing, not in any great way. So by applying a different lens onto the lean approach, it was possible to save them nearly 20% of their electricity bill, which, if from an economic benefit is clearly huge, obviously from an environmental benefit, we're not putting as much CO2 into the environment. So I suppose starting from lean, you can get those benefits. I think for many organisations that have taken a really good stance on green or environment, it's often seen as one-off projects. So we're going to have a project to do this or a project to do this, but there isn't really a culture necessarily of continuous improvement. So I think the green community can learn from some of the management aspects, some of the strategy, the deployment, the alignment, the leadership, the behavioural changes that organisations that are further on and advanced in the lean approach can bring. And I think probably the other thing is actually that people doing lean tend to be in one part of the business, say the operations management side, whereas people doing green tend to be in another part, like the environment, health and safety, something like that. And usually these two don't really talk to each other. So instead of having a group trying to do this improvement and a group trying to do this improvement, what we think is the business should say, well, what are we trying to achieve here, economically, socially, environmentally, and then how do we think about improvement by having one group of people doing this, rather than two sort of separate teams trying to almost compete with each other. I see this as really the next step on the lean journey, that for many organisations that have been doing lean for many years, I see actually bringing in the environmental side as really key. So myself and my colleague Keivan Zakai have been working in this area for maybe 6-7 years, something like that, trying to understand how to do this. So I think this is the start of the next evolution of lean thinking. I think it's also really important for those in the environmental movement, because we see lots of organisations with a lot of well-meaning environmental approaches that sometimes don't attract the attention of the senior management, because you can't actually put financial benefits on some of these things. So I think bringing this together gives a powerful force for those interested in lean and in green.